Summer routines live or die by how easy they are. And honestly, if something takes too much effort, I'm out. That's why Groons is my go-to. It's my one daily pack of gummies covering my greens, vitamins, and minerals. Plus, it has 6 grams of prebiotic fiber, which is more than 2 cups of broccoli. No mixing powders, no giant pills, no hassle. I just rip open the pack and I'm done. They taste good and they make it easy to stay on top of my health, even when life gets busy. Save up to 52% with the code PODCAST at Groons.co. That's code PODCAST at GRUNS.co.
Well, no matter what's happening in the world or in our cities or our state, we're going to keep doing sports podcasts. Hope we can provide some kind of a distraction. Of course, we'll also bleed into the real world at times. That this will be that kind of a show. This is the Russo Hockey Show, part of the TalkNorth.com podcast network. Best way to listen to this show or the network is subscribe at your favorite podcast app. You can also follow us on Twitter at TalkNorthPod and see the shows released in real time. We have a bunch of new shows, including Meatgistics, which is all about grilling and beer. We have now new Gopher Hole content, outdoor content. And if you'd like to advertise with this show or the network, you can reach me at JSOUHAN@talknorth.com. Let's get into one of the combination real world, sports world stories. I felt like Minneapolis-St. Paul was going to be a perfect hub city for the NHL as the NHL tried to return. I wonder if the unrest and the chaos we're seeing on our streets has wiped out that chance. What do you think, Michael Russo?
I think deep down it's probably a good bet, Jim, that it has. Although I'll say, I mean, if you watch TV, obviously there is civil unrest and understandable rage happening across our country right now. So
True.
all of a sudden, LA, who is a real viable option to be a hub city, and I'll give the reason for why suddenly LA is a viable option. Look at yesterday. I mean, same type of stuff happening: fires, riots, looting, things like that. The last couple of days, the last 3 or 4 days since the murder of George Floyd, and sickening thing that we all got to witness. It led to obviously demonstrations and protests, and ultimately to real dismay on the streets of our community, and all for the public eye to see. And the reason why that, even though we're talking about late July being hub city time, the reason why that could potentially just wipe out Minneapolis and St. Paul as a hub city option now is because they're really making the decisions now. There's a lot that's going to go into eventually creating the bubble, negotiating with the hotels, and all that type of stuff that's going to take a long time. So really, they want to, over the next couple of weeks, come up with that option. And then the other thing that I was talking to a source in the NHL that I asked this question to the last couple of days is, they are still paying attention to COVID. And not only does Minnesota suddenly continue to rise from a COVID standpoint, but I think there is concern from the NHL that all of a sudden, just the fact that you have a lack of social distancing, obviously the last 4 or 5 days on the streets of our community, I think they're worried that there could be all of a sudden another outbreak in, a week or two's time. And if that's to happen, by then the NHL might have had to really make sort of a decision. So, I still don't think that they would announce anything for 2 or 3 weeks for the very reason that they're going to want to see what keep a lot of teams sort of in that pool, a lot of markets in that pool of potential hub cities, and then make that final decision once they have the most information that they possibly can, particularly about COVID. But obviously, just what we've seen here in terms of what's gone on in our community here the last 4 or 5 days certainly does, as I flippantly said on Twitter yesterday, if you're going to list pros and cons for Minneapolis and St. Paul, the Twin Cities had a lot in the pro column, and suddenly this is one very giant thing in the con problem.
Absolutely.
Column.
Hey, we do appreciate our sponsors. Profile by Sanford, Twill in the Edina Galleria, Tony Hoaglander, State Farm agent who works out of Champlin, and Grey Duck Vodka. We'll tell you more about them as the show progresses here. Another real world thing before we get to hockey questions and more hockey topics. You and I both used to live downtown Minneapolis. My wife and I lived there for about 7-8 years before we moved because of her job. You used to live right. We used to be walking distance from each other in downtown Minneapolis. Now we're both suburbanites. And I don't know about you, but I feel really weird because it's very, where I live now, I'm safe. I didn't have to deal with any rioting, any police presence, any problems, but I almost feel guilty that I'm not down there amid it all because that's what journalists do. You kind of go where the story is.
Yeah. I mean, look at Mike Max right now, right? I mean,
I know.
all of a sudden he's become a news reporter. And I think in situations like this, when you watch all these journalists out there, risking their health and safety, bringing this story to us so we can all see what's going on, you really realize how sports writers are, on the low end of the bravery totem pole. That we are more entertainment writers than actual, news writers that really, help our society, in my opinion. But it was interesting. I mean, seeing, you and I lived pretty much right across the Hennepin Bridge from each other. It's pretty actually ironic, right? You lived on one end, I lived on the other. And yesterday there was a peaceful protest all day. And demonstration right on the Hennepin Bridge, and that was beautiful. And it would have been cool to kind of see that and be part of it, and see people trying to bring change to our society. And so that was really nice. And then it seems like when the lights go off, then all of a sudden the professional riders seem to come out and woodworks. A lot of them from outside our market, and that's just been. I know that there was some misinformation maybe given by the mayors yesterday morning saying that half or more or almost all the arrests were from out of market. But the reality is a lot of the people that come in here to burn communities, to take away pharmacies from people that need it, the most vulnerable amongst us, grocery stores away from them, jobs away from people. They're not people that live in our community. They are people that are coming in and are professional disturbers. And, I'm not discounting the rage that is the reason why they're bringing it, but nobody or very few people that I think are going to burn down businesses and take away these essential needs from people in communities, or people that love our area. Let's put it that way. And I'll tell you, I was just watching Mayor Carter on TV, and he said it a lot more eloquently than I did. I mean, on how. How basically it's a shame what we've seen here the last couple of days since 4 police officers absolutely just made a disgusting, committed a disgusting act and decision. And it still boggles my mind that something like this happened. And I'll tell you one thing, I thank goodness that camera was recording, Jim, because I don't think, and it shows you also before camera phones, a lot of the stuff that undoubtedly went on in our country. But especially when you see what the police report said and you see that the actual cause of death might not have been asphyxiation.
Oh, that's BS.
Yeah. I mean, well, regardless, those 4 police officers and one in particular killed that guy. And if that camera is not running, after reading the police report and seeing the coroner's report, I mean, there's a good chance that these 4 would have been. Off like a lot of police officers in our country's history. And so, at a minimum, thank God, as disturbing as it was, thank goodness we got to all see it.
What's the Will Smith line? Racism isn't getting worse. Racism is getting filmed.
Yeah, no doubt. So,
and by the way, let me thank all my colleagues at the Star Tribune who do much harder jobs than I do and put themselves in harm's way to tell the story and got shot, rubber bullet shot at them, tear gas cannons shot at them. Pretty much every Star Tribune journalist I follow, and I follow pretty much all of them, got in the way of some kind of abuse or danger last night. So I appreciate their work. Please subscribe to the Star Tribune if you can afford it. And you mentioned Mike Max. Mike Max and I are not friends. We're not close. We've never really been close. But I admire the fact that he put himself out there last night and did very good work. So congratulations to all the Minnesota journalists who went out there and tried to tell the story yesterday. All right, let's get to hockey. First, though, tell me about Profile by Sanford. Then we're going to get to hockey questions and more hockey news.
Yeah, I mean, this has been an awesome first month for me on Profile by Sanford. I'm down a lot of weight. Feeling good about myself, and that I think is the reason why a lot of people should actually look at Profile by Sanford is that not only are they getting you healthy and but that you come away from especially these weekly sessions that I have with my coach Danette, and you just feel better and motivated for the week ahead. And it is it's all about health and wellness and weight loss. And as anybody that knows me knows that I've fluctuated weight my entire life. I lost a lot of weight at one point, and then all of a sudden I just slowly got into bad habits and things like that in the last year. I think a lot of the reason is because I've gotten older, that I almost took it for granted that it was easy for me in the summer times and the off seasons to lose weight. But as I've gotten older, it's a lot harder. So, Profile by Sanford is something that I highly recommend. It's developed by doctors to take the guesswork out of weight loss. As I mentioned, there's health coaching that comes with it. There's all sorts of bells and whistles. Not only is the food terrific, but you get that coaching, you get recipes, you get activities to help you with your exercise journey, and all sorts of cool stuff like that. And so, the cool thing also is that during this pandemic, they have their storefronts open, but if you want to get food, they'll ship it right to your door. They've opened their 6 locations in the Twin Cities for appointment only, so one person at a time. So you're definitely going to be able to continue to be safe as you continue this weight loss journey. So 6 Twin Cities locations. And for more information, please go to profileplan.com and tell them that Russo sent you.
So one other topic I want to get to before we get to our Twitter questions and other things, I'm actually very surprised by this. The NBA, I think, is going to return to play, but they're still formulating a plan, and they might not get back until late July. Baseball is nowhere in its negotiations. I could see them not having a season because of those negotiations. Football is going to play, but they have time. They can start in October if they want, and really nothing will be disrupted. I'm actually surprised that the NHL has been the most proactive, aggressive league in terms of getting back, because hockey is not an easy sport to play in the age of the coronavirus, and yet it feels like the NHL is ahead of everybody else in getting back. Or is that an accurate characterization? And if so, why?
I don't know if they're ahead of everybody, but they definitely. I mean, the one thing about the NHL is that they're so accessible that it's easy to cover. Almost give play by play in real time of the negotiations, and so I think one reason why they announced the format last week was because it had been so public, with a lot of the insiders really reporting the details and things like that, and that's because it's so easy to cover this league because guys call you back, right? But there's still a lot of hurdles to overcome. I mean, they've got to. The one thing about, and I'm sort of working on a national story right now about how when it came to like baseball, they also announced stuff like no spitting, no seeds, no wear masks in the dugout if you're not essential, don't be close to base runners and things like that. And the thing with hockey is it's impossible to play this sport at social distance, right? I mean, you're going to be spitting and breathing and all over, checking guys. It's just impossible. And so I think that's one reason why they're negotiating this really strict bubble that they're all going to be in, because the goal is that if you can keep everybody inside this bubble healthy and test them all the time and be 100% or as close to 100% convinced that none of these guys, have this illness in them, then you can go play the sport like we all are used to seeing, only without fans. And so there's still a lot to do. But I think one big reason that fans don't understand is and somebody tweeted me the other day this, why don't they just give up on this season and just work on starting next season on time? Next season is not starting on time. That is out of the cards, whether they play hockey or not this summer. And when Gary Bettman is now publicly, in a flippant way, almost like he's joking, but Gary Bettman knows every word that comes out of his mouth, Gary Bettman is aware of. When he's saying that we could potentially start next season with the Winter Classic, which is January 1st, I think what he is also telling you is that it is that when they do the economics and figure out the audits of what the damage is to this sport, that they realize that they need to play next season in front of fans, that it makes no sense to start next season October 10th and play 2 or 3 months without fans in the building. So what they're trying to do is distance this next season off so much into the future that it's going to give them the better opportunity to have fans in the crowd, or at least as much of next season with fans in the crowd. So I think that they want to just also try to get hockey back this summer, put it back on the radar for fans' minds, get people enthused about the game again, but essentially limit the number of months that it's going to be between the off season and next season's potentially starting. And in doing that, even though it's going to cost them an absolute fortune to put the sport back on with no fans and the amount of money it's going to spend that they're going to have to pay to put guys in hotels and feed them and all the stuff with testing and all that stuff, is at least minimize a couple of the percentage points of the immense amount of escrow that these players are going to have to pay over the next 2 or 3 years. Because, again, it's a 50-50 split between revenue and what the money goes out to the players. And if all of a sudden this becomes a $2 billion or $1.5 billion business again, the players are going to owe a lot of money back to the owners. And so if all of a sudden escrow goes from 35% to 28% by playing, even though that doesn't sound like a lot, that might be something that's, tolerable for the players to prove this at the end of the day, as long as they know that they're absolutely safe and this isn't going to be completely not worth it.
Mm. Hey, Twill and the Edina Galleria has been sponsoring us, supporting us for a long time now. They kind of need your support now. I know, hey, our podcasts aren't the most essential thing in the world, and you might not need clothes right now. But if you do need clothes, think of Twill. And things are changing rapidly here. Just call them 952-922-2711 to see how they're operating. They can bring clothes to the curb. You can also reach out to the owner, Scott Dayton, scott@twillmn.com, or just go to twillmn.com. How funny
is this, Jim? Kelly Schrader 26 seconds ago asked, why delay future seasons just to get the playoffs this year? Why is the NHL so bent on this? Is it just about money? And how funny is that? I mean, that's exactly what I just said is again, they're not, by playing the playoffs this year, they are not delaying the future season. The future season is starting as late as it is. It's very clear. So I think that one thing that hockey fans should stop thinking is that by playing this season, they are delaying next season to January 1. Next season could be potentially starting January 1, whether they play hockey this summer or not.
Wow. Okay. Let's see. Paul Larson asked about the chances of St. Paul being a hub. I think we've already gotten to that. You mentioned Los Angeles. I mean, do you have a kind of a favorite or two in mind right now?
That was the one that let's put it this way. In a normal situation, LA makes a ton of sense. But the reason why a lot of us just kind of poo-pooed LA being a possibility is, one, the Kings are not in the playoffs right now. It is so hard to get to practice facilities there based on traffic. And having so many people in compact areas, what will COVID be like in a month and a half? Because, again, they were late on their outbreak compared to, say, the East Coast and Middle America. But the reason why LA makes a ton of sense is because you can almost cordon off LA Live. You have a lot of restaurants there. You have the JW Marriott and the Ritz-Carlton there. So you could basically put all the teams there, walk across the arena, really keep people in this bubble and things like that. But the other reason why it makes a ton of sense is, and this might be really disenchanting to Wild fans, although you won't be in the arena anyway, is that most likely the NHL wants to take the host hub city team and put them in another hub because they think it would be an unfair advantage to allow that team to use their practice facility and all the bells and whistles that come with that. So if that's the case, it would really help things if you had a market like LA that doesn't have a team in it that's currently going to be in the mix of 24 teams, put the entire Western Conference in LA, and then you could put the Eastern Conference in Edmonton or Minnesota or Vegas or Columbus or something like that. And so that's why LA actually makes a ton of sense suddenly. Now, a lot of people have asked me I can't tell you how many tweets have said, I assume with everything that's going on in Minnesota now that Minnesota is out of the hub city scenario. But the reality is what we have seen here the last 3 or 4 days is that outrage is popping up all over our country. I mean, we're seeing everything in, Atlanta and Detroit and Chicago last night, and obviously New York City and now LA and Denver. And so Dallas, I saw some horrifying videos yesterday of a store owner getting absolutely mauled. So who knows in a week or two when they make this decision, if all of a sudden Minnesota will, calm down to the degree that they can almost re-enter the conversation of being a hub city again, right? I mean, one of the most beautiful things that I saw yesterday is all the peaceful demonstrations that happened during the day. And then all of our community members, not all, but many community members coming into downtown unsolicited with families to help clean up their fellow citizens. I mean, that type of stuff just shows you what the heart is of people that are from this area, right? And so again, who knows? We always live in the moment, and we were all saying today, like, oh, Minnesota can't be a hub city, but who knows? In a week or two, we might be calm again. Who knows?
Right. Absolutely. From good question from Please Just Sign Kaprasov already. That's his Twitter handle. Will the riots affect Kaprasov's desire to sign?
Yeah, I mean, I can't answer that question. There's so much uncertainty with Kaprasov coming over. I mean, how him leaving Russia, him coming into the country, what the quarantine will be like if he comes. COVID-19 and now obviously this. I mean, I don't know Kirill Kaprasov. I've never had one inkling of a conversation with him. I did send him a note once on Instagram asking if he'd do a Q&A with me, and he did give me an affirmative, and then I sent him the messages, but I never heard back. I sent him the questions, but it's hard to say. All I can tell you is that he wants to come as soon as possible. And so my guess is that I saw a picture of him on Instagram today. I don't know how old the picture was, but I saw it on my Twitter feed of him wearing a Minnesota Wild, and they're brand new. They're new ones too. So this might have been something that Bill Guerin delivered him, or it was sent to him. The Wild have been paying for his sticks, by the way, for 4 years. So I think they send him garb as well. That's one of the most interesting parts of this type of stuff. They just send him gear and things like that. So, but anyway, to get back, he was wearing a Wild hoodie and Wild sweatpants on this Instagram picture I saw. So that's a good sign. He wants to come. His agent wants him to come. And I could tell you that the NHLPA is going to fight it because, the one thing is that this is an arbitrary decision by the NHL. It's just, and we saw it last week. I mean, again, the kid was signed last September, but, there's really no difference between a Nick Robertson with the Toronto Maple Leafs and a Kirill Kaprasov and a Romanov and a Sorokin and all these guys. I mean, they're all reserve list players, but suddenly Robertson's allowed to be part of the Toronto Maple Leafs lineup. Now, again, he was signed pre-pause, but for the NHL to just take a handful of guys, and again, this is a handful of guys. None of these college free agents would have been eligible to play anyway in the playoffs, right? So these are only the 3 or 4 guys I mentioned, and the kid from the Florida Panthers. There's only a handful of these guys that this affects, and so the NHLPA is going to fight it because this is a collective bargaining issue. And I'm a little surprised the NHLPA is picking up this fight so much because technically, if let's say Kirill Kaprasov signs, he's essentially taking the lineup spot away from a dues-paying member of the NHLPA. Look at the Wild roster. If Kirill Kaprasov signs, Ryan Donato is probably starting in the press box, right? And definitely Victor Rask. And so, but I think the NHLPA is taking this on, and I think where the NHLPA gets offended, and this is why I keep on writing the word every time my source, and then Bill Daly coincidentally said it the other day, calling them ringers. It's technically. It really is, for lack of a better term. It's hard to call Cale Makar a ringer. It's hard to call Chris Kreider a ringer, and they all started. And so I get where the league was coming from here, but this is still, in any normal situation, these players, if they were signed, would be eligible to play. And now if the NHLPA wins this fight and the NHL goes back on its decision to make guys like Kirill Kaprasov ineligible, just imagine how ticked off a team like the Vancouver Canucks will be. So it'll be just interesting to see where this goes right now. But let's put it this way. Where before I thought it was pretty much 100% that the NHL would never go back on a decision it's made. We just saw them fold on their desire to have the NHL draft before the NHL playoffs. And so maybe they'll change their mind on this as well because the NHLPA is going to go to town on it.
With more good Twitter questions, do want to thank Tony Hoagland, your State Farm agent in Champlin. HOAGLUND. He can handle your insurance no matter where you live. Very responsive. And Tony, I hope we can get on a golf course again soon.
State Farm announces the Good Neighbor Relief Program. Our auto customers will receive, on average, a 25% credit for their premium until May 31st. No policyholder action is needed. That's $2 billion in customer savings. Because now more than ever, being a good neighbor means everything. Call State Farm agent Tony Hoagland at 763-421-4900 or online at ChampionInsurance.com.
I bet Tony Hoagland is pretty busy these days.
Yeah, I would think so. Hey, from Derek Felska, longtime
Because
listener.
as you and I prove, you don't have to live in Champlin to be to have insurance through Tony Hoagland. So and State Farm. So I bet he's pretty busy these days.
Yeah, we worked with Tony when we lived downtown. Now we live in the northern suburbs, still work with him. Derek Felska asks any news or hints from the league on when the NHL entry draft might be.
It'll be during the truncated off season after whenever the Stanley Cup is awarded. So they'll have a transition period after the NHL. After the Stanley Cup is awarded? Did I say after the NHL is awarded?
Something like that.
Yeah.
Don't worry. People don't listen.
I've been misspeaking a lot lately. I think I did a podcast with Nate Prosser the other day, and I think I called him like former Flyer, and he's technically a current Flyer. Anyway,
everybody's former now.
Yeah, exactly. So when the Stanley Cup is awarded, sometime in September or October, they will have a transition period where a lot of the stuff that is sort of pushed back that would normally be happening, like the June 1st entry level and things like that, will have they'll do it like they do it in the summertime. They'll have a period where they could make trades, where draft will happen, where free agency will start, where training camps will start. So it is absolutely unknown at this point when that will be, because we don't know when the resumption of play. I mean, let's think of a normal playoff here. If they start playing in late July with 5 games and then go right into the playoffs, I mean, a normal playoff, right, goes to for almost 3 months. So if they can condense things because these guys don't mostly have to travel, but the reality is that if they start August 1st with the 5 games, I mean, they absolutely could be playing through mid to late October. So it's going to be that's why I think all of a sudden we're seeing Gary Bettman talk about starting next season in January.
Right. Wow.
Which, in a lot of ways, I mean, it makes a lot of sense here, right? Your football is ending. There's no baseball. Who knows what's going to happen with the NBA? Major League Soccer's done, WNBA's done. All of a sudden, you could have 2 or 3 months before spring training where you're the teams that are playing. It's all you. And there have been a lot of people for many years that have thought that the NHL should start later. So, and again, if they do that and are committed to having an 82-game season next season, it's going to be either years before they get back on their normal calendar, or they just decide, you know what, this is a new world now, and this will be the template for future NHL seasons. We'll see.
Right. I mean, one thing that would make sense if you're looking at optimal coverage and optimal exposure. I mean, let's face it, there's a long stretch of the summer where there's hardly anything going on other than Major League Baseball and some golf. I mean, the NHL might be able to capitalize on playing later in the summer, and maybe even. I mean, I think July and August are just kind of dead spots for the American sporting calendar. They might actually be able to capitalize on having playoffs at a time when really nothing else is going on.
Yeah, and then if you start in January and you actually have, say, again with today's world, ice could be made at any point.
Right.
If you start this new sort of calendar and end seasons in July and August, again, you're just competing at that point with only baseball. So this actually, who knows? I mean, who knows? 3-4 years from now, we might see from now on a January to August hockey season.
Thanks to Grey Duck Vodka, Minnesota's vodka.
Minnesota has always been home for me and my family. And truly, I am so proud of everything about this state. This is Carly Zucker. I love celebrating everything unique about our state, and that includes the best vodka, and that's Grey Duck Vodka. When you head to the store, remember Grey Duck Vodka is locally made, locally owned, gluten-free, and most importantly, a company that gives back to the community. Thank you for choosing Grey Duck Vodka and supporting local business.
From Tyler, any news on Mikko and his intent to either retire or play another season? Outside of the Wild, I'm curious on your take of Jack Eichel's comments from the past week about playing in Buffalo.
No, I mean, I do think that Mikko is going to is done in the NHL, but I don't think he's going to retire. I think he's going to play another year in or longer in Finland. I definitely think that is on the cards. I mean, Mikko basically admitted that to me when we talked to him about a month ago at this point. But everything I hear, and it's the reason why I was writing it back in February, is that everything I hear is that Mikko is probably close to hanging it up in the National Hockey League. In terms of Jack Eichel, I mean, if I were Bill Guerin, I would call Botterill right away. I probably would have been around, doing that anytime anyway. I think it's still very impossible to unleash a guy like Jack Eichel, but there's no doubt that because they have him under contract too. There's no pressure on the Buffalo Sabres to have to move him, whether he's happy or not. So the goal, I think, for the Buffalo Sabres is just to make themselves a better team. He is. And the comments that he made, if you're not familiar with it, is that he did have a conference call the other day where he just talked about how it's been it was a long year and it's been a long 5 years and he's tired of losing, and I don't blame him. So, but he is, a big, strapping, right shot, highly skilled, high point producing center is exactly what the Minnesota Wild needs. So if you can get him, with one of your top defensemen and a first round pick and maybe another prospect, I think it absolutely at his age would be something to investigate. So, I'm sure Bill Guerin at a minimum is doing his due diligence. He knows Jason Botterill. Obviously, the two work together in Pittsburgh. So, I'm sure that I'm sure that Jason Botterill's gotten a lot of calls these days from very bored GMs. Just hey, Jack Eichel. Think we can get him for Victor Rask?
well, you have to ask, don't you?
Yeah, exactly.
We have to ask.
You never know.
Thank you to our producer, Brandon Morton. We got a few more Twitter questions to get through here. Jeff Ruland, this is interesting. Basically, he's asking if the Wild players' advanced age will make it more difficult for them to get back rolling, or will it be an advantage because they're going to have fresh legs?
It's the $1 million question. I think for a guy like Mikko, it's going to be hard to get back into NHL caliber type play when you haven't, when you've been just, not been able to get on the ice. I will say this: there are a lot of players. I don't know if Mikko's one of them. The one thing I have learned talking to hockey players in the last couple of weeks is that everybody's been skating for a month secretly. There's one team out west that have apparently been skating together, and you could probably guess the team, because what would be the one team that wouldn't leave that market during a pandemic? There's one team that apparently, together, have been skating every single day for 2 months. So there are guys just skating that have not been abiding by the NHL's recommended quarantine and have been getting into buildings and skating. But if you've been abiding by it, yeah. If you're not working out and skating the way like you normally would in an off season, I think it's very tough. But then, conversely, if you're a guy like Eric Stahl, who I think that all of us at the very end of his time before the pause would agree that he was not playing very well and looked tired, this is probably going to be an invigorating thing here. And once he gets back on the ice and working out every day like he's used to, I think it absolutely could help them. That's the one thing we haven't talked about yet, shockingly, is I like this matchup for the Minnesota Wild playing Vancouver. I really do think it's a really good matchup, and that if they get goaltending, they can win. And one of the interesting things, I had Dean Evison on the radio yesterday, and Dean 100% said that whoever is on the ice in training camp will have an opportunity to play if they prove that they deserve to be in the lineup. So that includes, if Victor Rask is ahead of somebody, or that includes if Jerry Mayhew outplays somebody, or Kirill Kaprizov, or mostly Kaapo Kähkönen. That is the one where there is a true probably tryout coming into camp, because I think it is completely uncertain how guys like Dubnyk, Stalock, Kähkönen, all these guys that haven't been on the ice as goaltenders in a long, long time, how they're going to fare. So now in a training camp and 2 exhibition games, you could have a legit tryout in net. And if you're Billy Guerin, it might make sense to give Kähkönen a shot, because I think the one thing that Guerin has to decide going into next season is what is the goaltending situation? Is Kähkönen ready to maybe be the number one? And then if he is, that could determine what you do with Dubnyk, whether you buy him out, or if you look at right now and say, oh my God, Kähkönen just completely flopped. Now all of a sudden it makes you realize, all right, at a minimum we need Dubnyk and Stalock, but maybe we got to go get another goalie. So, it really might make sense to throw Kakinen into the Wolves and let's see what he does. So that to me is kind of one of the interesting things coming in here.
Interesting. Is there another hockey? Let me see. I actually was going to ask you a question. I absolutely blanked. So let me go back to the Twitters. Let's see.
Trevor Blank asks, I'm assuming any chances for a new throwback jersey are being put on hold. I don't know that to be a fact. But one interesting thing that somebody did tell me recently is that all these NHL jerseys are made over in Asia, and that actually could be delaying things right now because of what's going on, obviously, in China and over there. So it will be interesting if that is true, that the throwback jerseys are. It might be just the easiest thing to absolutely put that on hold because that even affects the Winter Classic jerseys.
Hey, thanks to all our sponsors. Thanks to everyone who listens and has listened. We do appreciate it. Let's all try to survive all this stuff together. Thank you to Michael. Thank you to our producer, Brandon Morton, and we will be back next week to talk more.
Pretty little city built on a hillside. Music in the bars and fire in the sky. We went to the beach and it was covered in ice. And I used to call it home. So much coming out, there's nothing going in. I know that you feel like you're never gonna win. Oh, but the world won't forgive a winner.
Blah, blah, blah.